Nsenga Burton is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Burton Wire, a website that produces news from the African diaspora. She says there have been some successes, but also some setbacks in the battle for equal rights.
I think Dr. King's dream of equality has happened in certain ways. So, we've had a lot of progress. Some of that happened during his era, whether you talk about the Civil Rights Act or Brown versus the Board of Education or what have you. And we've had some definite positives happen in our communities and our societies, whether we talk about race relations, whether we talk about LGBTQ relationships, and we have had people who have been fighting for the continuation of those civil rights. But I think it's uneven because when we've had great things like the election of Barack Obama, the nation's first African-American president, we also have the response, which is the election of President Donald Trump, who is not an admitted white supremacist, but whose thinking and followers fall very much in line with that ideology and way of thinking.
To kind of piggyback off that, I saw Congressman John Lewis speak a couple of weeks ago about this day.
Yes.
He was in Indianapolis. I'm sure you know the story. He was working for Robert Kennedy's campaign. There was a big debate. Should he go and address the crowd? And Lewis said he felt strongly that Kennedy should go. And of course, Kennedy gave one of the speeches of the ages. And he said in that speech, for those of you who are black and are tempted to be filled with hatred and mistrust of the injustice of such an act against all white people, I would only say that I can also feel in my own heart the same kind of feeling. I had a member of my own family killed, but he was killed by a white man. Then he went on to say, what we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another and a feeling of justice towards those who suffer in our country. And I think about that today on this anniversary, and I think how far we are from that. Would you agree?
Well, to some extent, I do agree. I mean, Mike, I think that we have the benefit of, in our groups, in our circles, particularly in our profession, media-related professions, they are very diverse spaces. And so you're kind of forced to figure it out, to get along with people, to interact with people that you may not have anything in common with. And so I think that because we live in this kind of what I call safe space or world, it is easy to really assume that that is what's happening in other places. But I don't think that that is the case as much as it should be. We still have groups of people who believe that it's okay for people to be disenfranchised. We have people who believe that it's okay for teachers to not be paid well. We have people who think that, because you're a person of color or you're a woman, you shouldn't have any rights. And we saw that in this last election with some of the rhetoric and vitriol that was spewed. And I would argue in some of these mass shootings, when you go back and find out what's going on behind or within the minds of those folks, a lot of it has to do with maintaining these dominant ideologies and supremacist ways of thinking. I think we have to move beyond the I Have a Dream, which is an amazing, iconic speech, and it is always hopeful and helpful and motivational. But, there was another side to Dr. King that we have not explored publicly to the extent that we need to. He was killed when he was going to fight for the rights of sanitation workers. He was killed, he was anti-war, He really wanted us to really think about economics and those policies and how they affect poor people. And he wasn't just talking about black people, he was talking about all people. So I think the best way to honor him is to really become familiar with all of his work and to think about the ways in which you personally can do something to benefit society.